This is the Making Waves podcast. My name is Dave Roetman. We're here with Matt Hurley. Matt Hurley is a political consultant with Southeastern Strategies.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Matt, welcome.
Dave, always good to hang out.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your political background. How did you get involved in politics, and what do you know?
Man, I think like a lot of people, I came into the political world largely by accident. I grew up pretty poor in kind of the southwestern portion of Florida, and sort of in the rise of kind of the new age of marketing and social media. And I just knew I had a very entrepreneurial spirit and wanted to kind of get into business for myself, and marketing was kind of the new way to do that. 15 years ago, there's no such thing as a social media expert, and so kind of got involved in marketing in that way, and sort of fell into politics as just sort of an avenue by accident. And certainly the changes and things that have gone on in the country over the last number of years, we've evolved tremendously politically as a country, and as a populace and as a people. And so got involved with that and started getting involved in the political world, and had some successes in some campaigns, and have really just enjoyed it, and now have just been blessed to keep doing it, get to keep working on fun races and fighting for causes that we as conservatives care about.
Let's dig down a little bit into the marketing thing, because in my experience in politics, political campaigns tend to be a step behind private enterprise and corporations and marketing for the market, right? So it's always like, oh, we have to adapt the stuff that's happening now in the political marketplace. Would you say that politics has caught up, or is learning more from the private enterprise when it comes to marketing in politics?
Yeah, I think that the avenue by which we reach people constantly changes. So I think in our business, right, we're focused on winning Republican primaries, typically pushing conservative initiatives. The Republican primary voting base is sometimes very different than maybe an urban voting base in a Democrat primary. Mm-hmm. So the avenues by which we're going to reach those people is going to continue to change and evolve over time as the electorate gets older, as the electorate evolves. Mm-hmm. So on and so forth. But yeah, I think there is a big part of it that's keeping up with that side. But I think the other side too, and at least the approach I've always tried to take, is that if you listen first and then legislate second, or push policy second, that tends to yield a better result. Someone like Donald Trump, for example, was way ahead of his time on policies, right?
He was revolutionary in politics.
Totally. And it was by him, really, he had a very, first of all, he's been an amazing marketer his entire career and his entire life, but he had a very innate ability to understand like where the political tides were rolling, in the direction they were headed in, rather than kind of where they were right at that exact moment. For example, if you just look at the approval rating in 2015 of the idea of building a wall, right? Mm-hmm. At the time at which he first said that was not a highly approved thought. Today, the overwhelming majority of Americans from all parties, right, believe in the notion of securing the border with a structure. Mm-hmm. And so that's one example of just, I think great marketers have the ability to kind of be ahead of their time. Marketing is just listening to the consumer base and then providing a solution, right? And I think that's a big part of being successful in today's modern political world.
I think one of the main differences between private enterprise involved in marketing and politics is that you only really have every 2 years is when you're selling your product. And so you don't touch base very often with reality, as opposed to selling your product every day and seeing how much you're selling every day.
Yeah, I think about it even a little bit differently than that. One of the things I tell people that I love about the political market space is it's the only industry you can, judgment day comes, right? Election day comes. And so if you're somebody that's selling some marketing tool to the restaurant down the street or the furniture store, there's always, well, next quarter it's going to get better. Next quarter the revenue is going to come up. At the end of the day, we have election day, the cards get flipped over and the American people get to speak. Mm-hmm. and you're judged and the answers are right there on the table. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big part of the political world that I enjoy is that piece of it. But I think also what we're seeing is like the a little bit back for a long time in America, right? We did see these sort of short political seasons. Now the political market space does seem like it's sort of constantly rolling. Certainly here in South Dakota,
Right.
We're seeing that, right? Where
That is a difference. It's a change.
Yep. Yeah, and I think a lot of that's social media. A lot of that's the real-time access to content. Every time a news story breaks, we're all looking for every influencer, every talking head, every politician's reaction to it. And so I do think it requires you to be a little more on your game and up to snuff on exactly what's happening at all times.
What campaigns have you worked on in the past?
Oh, we've gotten to work on a lot of things from Donald Trump all the way down to dog catcher. When in our business largely focuses on swing states for the most part, Republican primaries. So mostly the big media market states: Florida, North Carolina, Michigan, Arizona, to name a few. But obviously we've gotten involved here in South Dakota over the last several years. Our firm's been with the president largely since the beginning. We've always supported him in his efforts, and so we've enjoyed playing a part in that. Have played in, like I said, things really from Donald Trump all the way down to dog catcher. Last year, we're heavily involved in North Carolina as a swing state, and Arizona, but North Carolina was our big target last year. That's a state that certainly has a changing population in and around the metros. That President Trump has done what no other Republican's been able to do there, which was win that state in 16, 20, and 24, despite some major headwinds elsewhere.
And you stuck with the president throughout
100%.
Since 2016. Yeah, so you did not waver even after 2020.
Not at all, and obviously being a Florida boy, born and raised, that was not common. Certainly our governor, who
Right.
has been a good governor, much of the Florida political consulting class took the DeSantis money and
Homeboy.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, and I think for us it was again a little bit of I always say in our business it's important to be historically correct. It's not important to win every individual argument of the day, and there was never a doubt in my mind that coming into the 24 election cycle that the American people were going to elect somebody that had been battle tested, somebody that was ready to undo the Biden administration's disastrous reign. And Donald Trump was the guy that was ready for the job. He had done the job. He knew where the bodies were buried. He knew what needed to be done he'd fix it once before. He'd be able to fix it again. And at the end of the day, that's what the American people were looking for. They were tired of 4 years of losing. They were ready to start winning, and they were going to pick a proven winner to get it done.
It's fair to say.
Yeah.
Can you give us a few, or put you on the spot here, can you give us an anecdote from the Trump campaign in North Carolina or Arizona or something?
Yeah, well, I would just say the president in general. I think my favorite story that I tell is I was in Mar-a-Lago. This was December of 2023. So maybe 6 weeks out or so until the Iowa caucuses, of course. So at the time you had Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley were kind of the two big names in the race there, and the president, we were there for this festivity, and the president came in, and the group of us there, we had done some polling that had our polling firm had done some polling that the president was all excited and had printed out, and this is really in the thick of the race, right? He's facing all these indictments, all this stuff's going on, and so he comes in and he's like, guys, look at the new poll numbers. We've got the poll numbers. 50 points, I'm beating Bird Brain by 50 points. And so he's kind of hyping the crowd up, getting people excited. And
That's a good impression.
yeah, well, he's a good guy. He's a fun guy to be around. So anyway, so he comes up and he's kind of touting the poll and getting people riled up about it. And he says to me, I think he actually might have even tweeted something along the same lines later after this, but he walks up to the table we're all standing at and he goes, the great Al Capone, the great Al Capone. And I'm like, where's he going with this? And he says, they only indicted him one time. 5 times they've indicted me. They'll do anything to stop me, but we're going to beat him. And I think what all joking aside, what that really was just such a cool reflection of is just his level of just stoic. I mean, that was in the heart of the storm, right? He's got $500 million in spending going on against him by his primary opponents. He's facing these just rogue indictments.
Most people would give it up.
Totally, because I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like he could have very easily gone off, raised money from his buddies, built a presidential library, and hung out at Mar-a-Lago and kept playing golf and doing his thing. But I think that legitimately, having been around and been in the room, see him in those environments, he legitimately cares about the American people. I mean, he legitimately felt like he had a calling to undo the disastrous policies that were being forced on people, and he really felt like it was his calling to go back and finish the job. And obviously, we know how the story ended, right? I mean, winning all 7 swing states, winning the popular vote, just a massive mandate from the American people, spoke volumes.
Now here in South Dakota.
Yeah.
And you've been here before.
So
it's not unfamiliar to you.
South Dakota is a great state. My wife and I have spent a lot of times out here. We love it West River, particularly in the summertime. Again, we're both Florida born and raised, so it gets a little hot down there in the summer. So we've certainly enjoyed spending time out in the hills. And for us, South Dakota was more of an escape from politics at times. It was not so much a political battlefield, but having been out here and seen some of the battles and seen some of the massive sort of precipice of a divide that the state's been on, we've certainly gotten involved here over the last few years, and it's been enjoyable. It's easy to get up every day and be involved in this stuff when you care about what you're fighting for. And South Dakota is a great state. My wife and I have traveled to every state in the country together, and we love South Dakota. We know that what's here is very, very special, and it's going to be important that the people of South Dakota protect that.
Well, the governor's race is very important to South Dakotans. I think sometimes the governor's race is more contested and influential and more watched even than a Senate race, a U.S. Senate race.
For sure. Yeah, look, I think this is one thing that you're hearing the president talk a lot about. I talk a lot about it amongst political folks, but the future of this country is in our states, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at things like COVID, yeah, I mean, we would care as a populace, we would care a lot less about what's going on in Washington, D.C. if we had 50 really strong governors.
As it should be.
Yeah, 100%. And so when you think about rural America, states like South Dakota, it's super critical that we have strong governors to protect those states, to protect the sovereignty of those states, build legal walls to protect the state from whether it's COVID, whatever the next thing is.
And there will be a next thing.
For sure. I think if you look at like foreign nations and buying up properties, buying up farmland, that's happening all over the country. It's important to make sure you have strong safeguards against that.
Energy policy.
Yeah, energy policy, 100%. And strong economic policy, fiscal responsibility. I tell people all the time, if you want to help better people's lives, like going to Washington, D.C. and dipping in your toe in the swamp and getting in a fight there with one of 435 members of Congress. I'm not saying it's not important, but you can affect change and policy much, much quicker through your local city councils, through your county commissions, and certainly your state legislatures and things like that.
The level of government that affects people most is the most local government.
100%.
The people that are down the street or across the city. And those are the people that affect your life most critically, most intimately. Undoubtedly.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, 2026 is going to be certainly one for the history books. You have really interesting dynamics in the governor's race here. Obviously, our firm's representing Toby Doeden. He's I have a belief that government should mirror the people that elect people. I believe in sort of our founding fathers' ideas that we should send people from their hometowns to represent them. We shouldn't have these class of career politicians, and it should be people. Yeah, it should be people who have worked hard, who have been in the communities, who have been involved in everyday life, and certainly Toby fits that profile. That's why we're supporting him. That's why we're representing him in this race. But there's going to be interesting dynamics. You've got an incumbent sort of interim governor, and Larry Rhoden, who's ascended to that position through a long set of political happenstances over the last couple decades. You've got Congressman Johnson, who has certainly been plotting his way to the governorship for several decades. And then you have this sort of new era wave of politician in kind of this culture war set up with Speaker Hansen, and it makes for an interesting dynamic. Certainly there's going to be a lot of money in the race and a lot of different things, but we feel like Toby's very well positioned. He's definitely the best and the strongest candidate in the race, and he's really done a great job at setting himself aside from the other three.
How does South Dakota's politics, now that you're more intimately involved with it, differences and similarities with other states? Compare South Dakota to North Carolina or Florida. I mean, what kind of dynamics are similar and what are different?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I think the biggest striking difference, and something that I actually really like about the state, is that it's built on the state itself is built up of small towns and small communities where people know each other. You get into these big media market states like North Carolina, Florida. On the other side of the aisle, we think of California and New York. Very few people are meeting the candidates that are running to actually represent them, right? Yeah, if you look at North Carolina, there's 10.5 million people in North Carolina. When you're out on the campaign trail and you shake somebody's hand, it's not necessarily likely that you're going to necessarily shake that person's hand again before Election Day. A state like South Dakota, where it's really built on just these exceedingly small towns and small communities that make up this state, every interaction matters. You're not just going to come into the state and buy TV ads and waltz your way into office. We've certainly seen people like Mike Rounds, successful many years ago on a shoestring budget, coming in and running a very retail politics type campaign and being successful in that. And I think it's indicative. It's almost like the junior varsity Iowa caucuses is kind of how I've explained it to people. It's even smaller than Iowa, but it's very much that you've got to be able to shake hands and kiss babies and convey to people in a one-on-one environment what your plan is and what you're going to do for them. And I think that's what people are going to see in this race. I mean, it's about the ability to transcend all 66 counties, travel from both sides of the river, be able to convey a vision that is going to be beneficial to both sides.
Well, I grew up in Iowa, and the Iowa caucuses are fascinating in the sense that it's a very open forum. Basically, they just let everybody talk at these caucuses. Like, okay, who wants to talk? They show the microphone and let people talk. Oh, okay, very good. And move on to the next person. But it's a very open forum. And there's a certain amount of that culture here in South Dakota, where there's a lot of open forums. There's a lot of interaction. You can go to any number of events and, like you said, meet your candidate. Yeah. And I think people expect, especially in some, to meet their legislator, because it's really not that many people. And it's really very relational.
100%.
Who knows who, and this person's supporting this. Oh, I like that guy, so I'm going to support the person they support. So you've been involved you've gone all to 66 counties now.
Almost, yeah. Almost, yeah. So Toby's in the middle of this bus tour, and he's been to, I think they're at stop 52 or 53. But yeah, over 100 stops since May 28th.
You think you'll get all 66 counties before the snow flies?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. He doesn't have very many left. We're back out on the road tomorrow. I mean, he's been great. It's been awesome. And I think the thing that makes him such a unique candidate is his ability. I mean, first of all, he's doing something no one's ever done, right? I mean, nobody's ever traveled all 66 counties.
It's kind of a big deal to go to these small towns.
100%. And he's drawing out crowds of 50, 60, 100 people in communities where that makes up large double-digit percentages of the primary turnout many months before the campaign, before the election. And I think it's, again, just is sort of indicative of what it is that he's doing. He's building this very, very populist movement that is meeting people where they're at. I mean, certainly there are people in the state that are really, really struggling under the crushing property taxes and so many things like that. They're not really interested in some of the things that I think that folks like Congressman Johnson and Larry Roeden, they're talking about these large-scale economic projects with massive subsidies and talking about these massive spending projects like the prison. What we're seeing is the electorate, again, very similar to Trump in sort of 2015, 2016. The electorate is just not interested in some of the things that the more well-known politicians are trying to discuss. They're very, very interested in sort of these kitchen table issues like property taxes, like education, like crime and public safety. Those are the issues. And Toby is not walking around in tuxedos and in a suit and tie. He's showing up most of the times in jeans and a button up and sitting down on a bar stool in a local cafe and just having an open dialogue, open conversation with some of these people about their challenges. And he's presenting them with his ideas for solutions, which I think is super refreshing. He's not going in talking down to people, ordering around policy. He's having open dialogue and discussion about things that he think might work and ideas that he think might be good to look at. And the people are biting off on it, right? I mean, that's what's so interesting about his campaign is the people are grasping onto it because it's a breath of fresh air.
The populist message is, well, popular in South Dakota. Trump won very big here.
Yeah.
It's in South Dakota. It's one of the highest vote percentages for Trump.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think I think the populist message is popular all across the country. I think that I actually think it's even a bipartisan situation, right? Where folks are really interested in, how's my grandkid going to be able to afford a house? How can my kid get a higher paying job?
There are Democrats who are pro Second Amendment here in South Dakota.
For sure, yeah. And I think that that's the issue of our time is these populist issues. People just want to live a better life. They're not. I think that the political hate and divide that the media has tried to convince us exists for a very long time now, I think people see that really doesn't exist. Most people, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, Purple People Eater Party, whatever it is, most people want the same thing, right? They want to be able to kind of have pillars of a great economy. They want to have great public safety, good education for their kids, good roads, safe ability to travel, good health care. Those are the things that most people want, right? And sometimes we differ on how we get to those places. But look, while the politicians are focused on pet projects and pushing whatever new initiative many of their donors are looking for, most regular people are just not interested in that stuff. They're interested in how they can be sort of left alone and have an even playing field of those pillars I just discussed.
That's a very good point, because most primary voters are not involved in the day-to-day drama of politics, and 100%. They couldn't even tell you what that is.
Yep.
Until they vote on election day, and what they're doing is they're voting for the person they think will serve them the best. And
Yep.
so the primary voters, vast majority, 90-something% are not involved in the day-to-day drama at all.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly right. I tell people, folks like you and I who spend a lot of time in politics, it can be sometimes easy to get swallowed up into that echo chamber. And many folks who get involved in the political process do get swallowed up into that echo chamber. But the reality of it is look, most of the voters, even the hyperactive voters that vote in every single election, no matter what, they are much more concerned with getting their kids to their soccer game, making sure grandma gets to her doctor's appointment on time, making sure the bills are paid and they're not late on a mortgage payment or a car payment. Those are the things that those folks are hyper-focused on. They're not hyper-focused on what infighting is happening at the Republican Women's Club or the men's breakfast. They're just not focused on that stuff. And so I think it's important that us as folks within the political sphere, within the political arena, don't ever lose sight of that. Don't ever lose sight of the fact that, listen, most people don't care. Most people don't care about all the political infighting and the nonsense. They just want to be told what you stand for, what your policy ideas are, and how that's going to affect their life.
Most people, they have their family, their church, and their job.
Exactly
that's
right.
what they're interested in.
100%.
Day-to-day issue. So let's go back and talk a little bit, go down to the weeds about data and how you're going to use that, or what you notice about data use in politics and campaigning. I mean, that's kind of a thing that's near and dear to my heart.
For sure.
But I mean, what is your insight on that? What can you tell us about South Dakota's and compared to other states?
Yeah, look, South Dakota is, like we've been talking about, South Dakota is not much different. Certainly there's hyper-local issues that we look at, right? Things like the prison. If you want to look backwards to 2024, there was the Summit Carbon Solutions pipeline. There are these little cultural things that will pop up and
Issues.
the issues of the day. And so it's for us, right, when we're looking at managing these campaigns, we're always looking at people's thoughts on those issues. And again, I think it stems not even from a campaign standpoint, but from a governing standpoint. It's important to use this data. Again, I have a very, very strong belief that government should mirror the will of the people. So it's important to always understand the will of the people. What do people largely think about this issue? And again, most of the issues that we talk about in this state are really not partisan, and they're not like tight issues. There's a few little issues where we get into that 55-45% range. Look, most of the issues in this state are 85-15 type issues. 85% of the state thinks about it one way, maybe 7 or 8% looks another way, and another 7 or 8% falls somewhere in between. And so it's a pretty an interesting dynamic there. But yeah, I mean, certainly in any campaign we run, and anytime we're looking at advising folks on governing, it's all about data, because again, I think you should your message, your beliefs, what you're going to ultimately do from a governing standpoint should mirror the will of the people who are sending you there.
That's a very good point, because I talk to people downtown Sioux Falls, and some of them are very left-wing Democrats.
Sure.
And we probably disagree 80, 85%, 90% of the time on the ideology. But when we're talking about today's issues, we find ourselves in congruence on these issues. We sometimes come in from different viewpoints, but the actual issues in the news, like, yeah, I completely agree with this guy. For sure, yeah. And I think a lot of that, again, is the media has worked so hard to try and convince people that we hate each other. When in reality, like, again, I think we may differ sometimes on what the solutions are, but I think most Americans, and again, you can boil that from a national election all the way down to your local city council race, most people are looking for the same thing. And so I think you're exactly right. I think that most of the time people are much less divided than they're led to believe that they are. And I think that comes, the way we get over that, right, is just through open dialogue, open communication. I think the sort of association politics that we've lived in for so long, where it's, well, I can't associate with that guy because he voted for Trump or whatever. I think that's just a disaster, and hopefully I think we've moved beyond those days. I mean, I think the country is really united under this kind of golden era that we're in right now, and people are excited to see sanity and common sense brought back to the highest levels of our government. Well, that's how you're successful in politics. You have to talk to the people you disagree with. 100%. Because even if you could disagree with somebody 90% of the time, 10% you agree with them. Yep. And you have to discuss that with them in order to be on the same side. And sometimes you can come to a compromise, or you can sway them to your side on an issue. But you have to talk to them. That does not mean you support them necessarily, or that you're on their side, or you're scheming with them. But that you have to just keep those bridges open and keep the dialogue going. Yeah, I'll say specifically here in South Dakota, the thing that needs to be addressed, in my opinion, super immediately, is the massive division in the legislature here. So I think if you look, I mean, look, our legislature is 95% plus Republican, right? It's 95% plus Republican legislature. And despite that, it's very, very challenging to get legislative agendas to move forward and to progress, because there's so much personality-driven division. And so I think that regardless of who's governor, I think one of the things that voters really do have to take a good look at, and the voter base in South Dakota is very educated. They do pay attention. They're listening. Whoever's going to be governor has to be somebody that can unite that legislature and get them working for the people of South Dakota. Because, again, this is not an ideological spectrum thing, right? But there are members of the legislature on both sides, the moderate wing all the way over to the most conservative wing, that have largely become activists, in my opinion, rather than lawmakers. And that's what I try to advise those folks all the time, is that no one's sending you here to be an activist. They're sending you here to implement good policy, repeal bad policy, and largely work on behalf of making South Dakota a better place for the people who live here. And so if you're going to go in there and say, well, I'm never working with that guy on an issue because he voted this way one time,
you're not going to get anything done, right? I mean, that's the reason there's menus in restaurants. It's the reason that we don't all think alike. And so I think it's super important that the legislature works on trying to find common goals, especially on the big issues: public safety, property taxes, education, the things that really are the kind of the core pillars of our economy. If you don't have those things, you won't have a strong economy. And so it's important that the legislature works on those issues. It's very important that whoever the next governor is, and again, this is why I think you're seeing Toby have so much success, is because he's somebody who understands that, right? You can't have a house divided amongst itself, or else they won't be able to deliver anything for the people of South Dakota.
I think that's fairly common in politics, and the ancient Greeks and the Athenian Agora would recognize some of this stuff.
For sure. No doubt about it. And I think, again, certainly we see it at the national level on a more partisan basis, Republican versus Democrat. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very critical at our state level to make sure that our legislature is kind of putting that gamesmanship aside, working together to actually advance the policies that the people of the state are so desperately asking for.
Fair enough. Do you have any final thoughts?
Man, not today. It's just, it's always great to hang out with you. Always so much insight, and I enjoy being able to cut it up with you and kind of hear your insight. You're a wealth of knowledge, where all the bodies are buried yourself from years of being in this state, and I've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for being on.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. This has been the Making Waves podcast. My name is Dave Roetman. We've been here with Matt Hurley, campaign manager for Toby Doeden.